The moment the young woman stepped into the federal interview building wearing a simple blue dress and a pair of old, worn-out shoes, several candidates looked at one another and quietly smiled. To them, she looked like someone who had accidentally walked into the wrong place. But within the next hour, every person in that room would realize they had made the biggest mistake of their lives by judging her before she spoke. If you believe that kindness is more powerful than judgment, and that hard work always wins in the end, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with someone who needs hope today. Emma Carter was born in a tiny farming town in Kansas where life was quiet, opportunities were limited, and dreams often felt too big for people living there. Her parents owned no land of their own. Her father worked long days on other people's farms, while her mother cleaned motel rooms in the nearby town. Every dollar they earned disappeared into rent, groceries, and bills before the week was over. Their little wooden house stood at the end of a dusty road surrounded by endless wheat fields. It wasn't beautiful or modern, but it was filled with love. Every evening, after finishing their exhausting jobs, Emma's parents would sit with her at the old kitchen table, encouraging her to study even though they had never gone to college themselves. Emma understood from a very young age that education was the only road that could change her family's future. While other children spent weekends shopping or going to amusement parks, Emma worked after school at a small grocery store. She stocked shelves, cleaned floors, and carried heavy boxes just to help pay for school supplies and save a little money for college. Many classmates never understood her life. They laughed at her secondhand clothes, her old backpack, and the lunch she brought from home. Some believed poor people simply weren't meant to dream big. Every joke left a mark on her heart, but instead of answering with anger, Emma promised herself that one day her success would become her answer. Her greatest dream was to serve her country through public service. She wanted to become a federal officer who could improve education, support struggling communities, and make sure children growing up in small towns received the same opportunities as those living in wealthy cities. Life, however, became even harder when her father suffered a serious back injury while working on a farm. Overnight, the family's only steady income disappeared. Medical bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and there were evenings when the refrigerator held almost nothing except milk, eggs, and bread. Emma could have given up. Many people expected her to. Instead, she took on 2 part-time jobs while continuing college. She slept only a few hours each night, studied in the public library until it closed, and often completed assignments in her car because she couldn't afford internet service at home. Every obstacle strengthened her determination. Every difficult day reminded her why quitting was never an option. Years later, after graduating with excellent grades, Emma applied for one of the most competitive federal civil service positions in the country. Thousands of applicants competed for only a handful of positions. Most candidates had prestigious universities, expensive coaching, and influential connections. Emma had none of those advantages. She had only discipline, honesty, and years of sacrifice. When the email arrived inviting her to the final interview in Washington, D.C., her mother cried with happiness. Her father smiled quietly, hiding tears behind tired eyes. They knew their daughter had already achieved something extraordinary simply by reaching that stage. The night before her journey, Emma packed her only formal dress, carefully ironed by her mother. She polished her old shoes until they looked almost new. Looking at herself in the mirror, she whispered a silent promise that no matter what happened tomorrow, she would represent every hard-working family that had ever been told they weren't good enough. The next morning, she boarded a bus carrying nothing more than a small suitcase, a folder filled with years of hard work and a heart full of hope. When she finally arrived at the impressive federal building, surrounded by candidates dressed in expensive suits and carrying luxury briefcases, she took a deep breath and walked through the entrance with confidence. She had no idea that within the next few hours, the people who underestimated her would never forget her name. Emma quietly took her seat outside the interview room. Around her, candidates reviewed thick folders and spoke confidently about prestigious universities, internships, and influential mentors. She remained silent. She had no impressive stories about elite schools or expensive preparation courses. Everything she knew had been earned through years of discipline, sacrifice, and determination. When her name was finally called, she stood up, straightened her simple blue dress, picked up her worn leather folder, and walked into the interview room with calm confidence. A panel of senior federal officials welcomed her. Their expressions were polite, but a few seemed surprised by her modest appearance. Emma noticed their curiosity, but refused to let it distract her. She reminded herself that she wasn't there to impress anyone with her clothes. She was there to prove her ability. The interview began with basic questions about her education and background, before gradually becoming more challenging. The panel asked about public administration, leadership, ethics, crisis management, economic development, education reform, and rural communities. Each question demanded careful thinking rather than memorized answers. Emma answered slowly and thoughtfully. She never rushed. Instead of repeating textbook definitions, she explained real-life solutions based on the struggles she had witnessed growing up in rural Kansas. When asked how the government could better support struggling communities, she described families forced to choose between paying medical bills and buying groceries. She explained how poor transportation, limited internet access, and underfunded schools trapped hard-working people in cycles of poverty. Rather than blaming anyone, she proposed practical solutions built around education, infrastructure, and local job opportunities. The interview room slowly grew quieter. The officials stopped looking at her appearance and started paying close attention to every word she spoke. One interviewer presented a difficult ethical situation involving public funds. Many applicants before Emma had answered with complicated legal language. Emma's response was different. She explained that every dollar collected from taxpayers represented someone's hard work and should always be managed with complete honesty and transparency. Her answer reflected integrity rather than rehearsed perfection. Another official asked what leadership meant to her. Emma paused for a moment before answering from the heart. She explained that true leadership was not about titles, power, or recognition. Real leaders serve first. They listen before making decisions, remain humble during success, and stand beside people during difficult times. She believed that a public servant should never forget the ordinary families whose trust placed them in that position. For several seconds, nobody spoke. One senior interviewer leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and quietly smiled. Then came the final question. What has been the greatest lesson of your life? Emma looked down briefly before lifting her eyes with quiet confidence. She explained that growing up poor had taught her something money never could. She had learned that character becomes strongest when life is hardest. She had discovered that kindness costs nothing but can change someone's future forever. Most importantly, she had learned never to judge another person by appearance because every individual carries a story that cannot be seen from the outside. Her voice remained calm, but every sentence carried years of sacrifice. When she finished, complete silence filled the room. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was respect. As Emma thanked the panel and left the room, she felt surprisingly peaceful. She didn't know whether she would receive the job, but she knew she had spoken honestly. For the first time in years, she felt proud, not because of what she had achieved, but because she had stayed true to herself. Several weeks passed. Life returned to normal in Kansas. Emma continued helping her parents while waiting for the final decision. Every morning she checked her email, trying not to expect too much. Then one unforgettable afternoon, her phone rang. She answered with trembling hands. After a brief conversation, tears slowly filled her eyes. She had been selected. Not only had she received the position, but she had also earned one of the highest interview scores among all the finalists. Her mother hugged her so tightly that neither of them could stop crying. Her father quietly stepped outside onto the porch, looked across the endless wheat fields where he had spent his entire life working, and thanked God for allowing him to witness his daughter's dream become reality. News spread quickly throughout their small town. The same people who had once doubted Emma now celebrated her success. Former classmates who had laughed at her worn clothes admitted they had judged her unfairly. Teachers proudly shared her story with younger students. Local newspapers called her an inspiration for rural America. Yet success never changed Emma. After beginning her federal career, she continued visiting small towns across the country. She worked tirelessly to improve educational opportunities, support struggling families, and ensure that children growing up in forgotten communities believed their dreams mattered. Whenever students asked how someone from a poor farming town could achieve such success, Emma always gave the same answer. She told them that expensive clothes might attract attention, but honesty earns respect. Wealth might open some doors, but perseverance keeps them open. And no dream is ever too big for someone willing to work harder than everyone else. Years later, people no longer remembered Emma as the girl with old shoes. They remembered her as the woman whose courage, humility, and determination inspired thousands of young people across America to believe in themselves. Her journey proved that true greatness is never measured by the clothes someone wears, the town they come from, or the money they have. It is measured by the strength of their character, the kindness in their heart, and the courage to keep moving forward when the entire world expects them to give up. Before this story ends, leave a comment below and tell us what lesson touched your heart the most. Your words might give hope to someone who needs it today. If this story inspired you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support our channel and help us bring you more heart-touching stories every week. And before you go, tell us which country you're watching from. We love reading your comments and seeing friends from all around the world. Thank you for being part of our family.